Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello dear, let me introduce myself. My name is Alifia. I'm from English Education Department 4C, and here I will tell the story about the cactus. The most notable thing about time is that it's so purely relative. A large amount of reminiscence is by common consent considered to the drowning man, and it is not past belief that one might review an entire courtship while removing one's clothes. That is what Tyrsdale was doing. Standing by a table in his bachelor apartment, on the table stood a singular-looking green plant in a red earthen jar. The plant was one of the species of cacti, and was provided with long, tentacular leaves that perpetually swayed with the slightest breeze with a peculiar beckoning motion. Thursdale's friends, the brother of the bride, stood at the sideboard complaining at being allowed to drink alone. Both men were in evening dress, with flowers like stars upon their coats shone through the gloom of the apartment. As he slowly unbuttoned his clothes, there passed through Trittle's mind of swift, scarifying retrospect of the last few hours. It seemed that in his nordress was still the scent of the flowers that had been penned in outdoors messages about the courage, and in his heart the law pictured whom a thousand will breed voice. The rooster of the Chris Corman, and the most instant lyric, the drawing words of the minister, irrevocably binding her to another. From this last hopeless point of view he still strove, as if it had become a habit of his mind, to reach some conjecture as to why and how we had lost her. Shaken only by the uncompromising fact, he had suddenly found himself confronted by a thing he had never before faced: his own innermost, unmitigated, unmitigated self. He saw all the corpse of pretense and egoism that he had worn now turned to rocks of fall. He shuddered at the thought that to others, before now, the garments of his soul must have appeared sorry and threadbare. Vanity and conceit, these were the chain of his mores, and how free from either she had always been. But why, as he had slowly moved to the icy, the altar he had felt an unworldly, sullen exhaustion that he had suffered to support him. He had told himself that her blindness was from thoughts of another than the man to whom she was about to give herself. But even that poor consolation had been wrested from him, for when he saw that swift, limpid, upward look that she gave the man when he took her hand, he knew himself to be forgotten. Once that same look had been raised to him, and he had caught its meaning. Indeed, his conceit had crumbled. Its last pope was gone. We had ended thus. There had been no quarrel between them. Nothing. For the thousandth time he remarshalled in his mind the event of those last few days before the tide had so suddenly turned. She had always insisted upon placing him upon a pedestal, and he had accepted her homage with royal candor. It had been a very sweet in case that she had burned before him. So modest, he told himself, so childlike and worshipful, and he would only have sworn so sincere. She had invested him with an almost supernatural number of high attributes and excellences and talents, and he had absorbed the obstination as a dessert drink, the rain that can coax from it no promise of blossom or fruit. A trident grimly wrenched apart the seam of his last glove, the crowning instance of his virtuous and thoroughly mourned egoism come vividly back to him. The scene was the night when he had asked her to come on his pedestal with him and share his greatness. He could not now, for the pain of it, allow his mind to dwell upon the memory of her conceiving beauty. That night, the careless was of her hair, the tenderness and virginal calm of her looks and words. But they had been enough, and they had brought him to speak. During the conversation she had said, "And Captain Cortez, tell me that you speak in the Spanish language like a native. Why you have hidden this accomplishment from me? Is there anything you don't know now? Is there anything you do not know?" No, Cortez was an idiot. No doubt Thursday, had been quality, he sometimes did such thing, and of airing at the club some old, canting Castilian proverb took from the hot pouch at the back of the dictionary. Carruthers, who was one of his incursion admirers, was the very man to have magnified this exhibition of doubtful erudition. But the incense of her admiration had been so sweet and flattering. He allowed the imputation to pass without denial. Without protest, he allowed her to twine about his brow this precious bay of Spanish scholarship, and he let it graze his conjuring head and among its soft confusion. He did not feel the prick of the thorn that he was pierced him later. How glad, how shy, how tremulous she was. How she fluttered like a snared bird when he laid his mayonnaise at her feet. He could have sworn, and he could swear now, that unmistakable consent was in her eyes. But Kaylee, she will give him no direct answer. "I will send you my answer tomorrow," he said. She said. And he, the indolent, confident victor, smilingly granted the delay. The next day he waited, impatient, in his room for the world. At noon, Her groom came to the door and left the strange cactus in the red earthen jar. There was no note, no message, merely a tag upon the plant bearing a barbarous variation or botanical name. He waited until night, but his answer did not come. His large pride and hurt vanity kept him from seeing her. But she looked at him, breathless, wondering, and eager. He was curious, adamant, waiting her explanation. With womanly swiftness, she took her cue from his manners and turned to snow and ice. Thus, and without from his own, they had drifted apart. Where was he found? Who had been to blame? Humbled snow, she showed this answer amid the runs of his self-concept. If the voice of the other man in the room, curiously intruding upon these talks, aroused him. I said, Trishtel, what the deuce the matter with you? You look unhappy as if you yourself had been married instead of having acted merely as an accomplice. Look at me, another accessory, come 1,000 miles on a curly banana steamer all the way from South America to Corners at the South Cry. Please to observe how likely my good rests upon my shoulders. Only little sister I had too, and now she's gone. Come now, take something to ease your conscience. I don't drink just now. Thanks, said Trishtel. You brandy, resumed the other, coming over and joining him. It's abominable. Run down to see me some time at Punta Redonda and try some of our stuff that old Garcia smuggles in. It's worth a trip. Hello, here's an old acquaintance. Wherever did you rake up this cactus, Trishtel? A present, said Trishtel. From a friend, now species? Very well, it's a tropical concern. See hundreds of them around Punta every day. Here's the name on this tag tied to it. Know any Spanish, Trishtel? No, said Trishtel, with the bitter pride of a smile. Is it Spanish? Yes, the native imagine the levels of reaching out and beckoning to you. They call it by this name, Vento Marmel. Name means in English, come and take me. I think it's enough from me. Thank you. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.